first reader is Dana Baird.
I'm going to read from the third book of the series, which is Broken Legacy. And I'm not going to do any introduction because I think the reading is exactly 7 minutes. So you'll just have to figure out what's going on by the reading. Madame Karenina's day was proving to be a challenge, and it was only mid-morning. How could that young woman miss another lesson? Karenina had hoped that the vigilance required of a royal nanny would ease once her charge had reached 16 years old, but instead things were quite out of hand. The royal palace housed a number of places to hide if one didn't want to catch the ire of one's nanny. As usual, it was stuffed full of tiresome courtiers and busy royal staff. They all moved out of Karenina's way when she passed. She strode through the gallery that flanked the southern entrance, coming upon a gaggle of handmaidens gathered at the balustrade. Some activity in the palace's main courtyard below had them enthralled. Stopping to observe what had distracted these women from their duties, Karenina peered downward. In the center of the bustling courtyard, a group of young noblemen crowded around a fencing duel. The two helmeted fighters sparred and jabbed while their friends egged them on and loudly placed wagers over who would come out on top. 3 denarii on our man Danner. 4 says he eats the ground. I'll wager an entire sildo that they reach a draw. Good luck, these two won't stop until someone's down. Karenina had heard enough, and she admonished the ladies. I should think you have better things to do than watch those ruffians at play. Most of the ladies blushed and backed away from the balustrade, but an older woman winked. One of those ruffians is your charge, madame. Oh, for the cat's sake, not again! Karenina rushed through the gallery, her annoyance overpowering all sense of propriety. She descended the stairway to the courtyard in a swish of crisp skirts and an air of retribution. The ladies leaned over the balustrade to watch the storm that was about to blow. In the courtyard, the heftier fighter fell to the ground, his sword flying upward from his hand. His opponent snapped the weapon from midair and then trained it on the fallen man's throat with a flourish. Cheers rose from the onlookers. Karenina's commanding voice cut them short. Your Grace! The victor paused, then removed her helmet. Royal Duchess Alicia's honey-toned hair fell into her longish, freckled face. She immediately donned the well-rehearsed look of contrition. Her chin sank, and her eyes went wide as the nanny stomped up to her. I'm truly sorry, madame. Karenina smoothed the stray lock of steel-gray hair away from her deep brown forehead. She fixed the girl with her customary glare of admonishment. I should say you are, young lady. Unlike most ladies of the royal line, Alicia had honed her physique into a sinewy collection of overdeveloped muscles. She towered over most her gender. Yet she shrank accordingly when Karenina continued. You had lessons with your language instructor this morning. Instead, I find you here, sparring like a common rogue. Well-bred people do not go swinging swords for the pleasure of gamblers, especially women. At that, Alicia's expression moved on to the next familiar stage, defiance. But, madame, there are many gentlewomen in the military. None of those women are the king's granddaughter. Karenina swung around to the others, directing her ire at the now sheepish young men. She had run a manor house and a spinning business before taking on Alicia's care. She knew how to use her frame and deep voice to her advantage. The fallen boy had floundered to his feet, so Karenina settled on him. And you, Danner, an earl, should not be encouraging such behavior from a woman of royal blood. The son of an influential cardinal, Danner was as haughty as they came. He looked like a bull playing dress-up, packing his bulky frame into a rather fancy doublet, now dusted with dirt from the courtyard. At least he had the sense to cower in the face of the royal nanny's disdain. My apologies, madame. This play is over, Karenina said to the group. I expect you can all find more useful things to do with your idle hours. Taking their cue, the young men scattered accordingly. With a jerk of her head, Karenina headed towards the western stairway of the royal chambers. Alicia obediently fell into step beside her. They passed through the archway into the body of the castle, avoiding the crowds around the central receiving hall. The corridor was hushed compared to the action of the courtyard, and Karenina let her voice fall into a less commanding tone. It's too late for your morning lessons, but at least we can get you cleaned up before lunch. Madame, Alicia said in a small voice, You used to find my spirit endearing. What changed? Corinda slowed her walk, her anger ebbing. Our circumstances changed. When you were a child, it was expected you would not understand proper behavior. But now you are 16, and you must learn to behave according to your rank. You wish to be treated as an adult, and self-control is part of adulthood. She paused when the clock chimed in the hallway, nearly lunch hour. And now you shall be late for lunch. Corinda hurried around the corner of the stairway, almost bumping headlong into a man, or more precisely, the king. Over 6 feet tall, as he was over 6 feet tall, Corinda found herself staring into his chest. He was dressed in an ivory damask doublet and his chain of office. So lunch was to be formal today, Corinda sighed. She raised her gaze to meet his eyes and then dropped into a low curtsy. Beside her, Alicia did the same. Your Majesty, Corinda said, my apologies. No apology is necessary. I appear to be intact. A chuckle warmed the king's voice. And please rise. We're not in court right now. Corinda's relief withered when she saw that the princess and prince were standing right behind the king. Their faces reflected no amusement as they examined their disheveled child. And what have you been up to, daughter? Thera's tone was much cooler than her father's. She was the very definition of her station, with her golden hair swept up in a precise twist under her crown. Under her mother's prim scrutiny, Alicia stammered, pleading with Corinda with her eyes. Exercises, Your Highness, Corinda quickly answered on the girl's behalf. After her morning lessons, I felt it appropriate that her grace would benefit from fresh air and a brisk walk. Brisk indeed. The prince consort's features softened into a smile. He wore a neatly trimmed beard to accompany his amber-brown curls, now cut rather short, and only the slightest crinkle came to his cheek as he passed a subtle wink onto Corinda. Clearly, he didn't buy the story, but he wouldn't make things worse. For this, Corinda was grateful. It rattled her enough to lie to the royal family. She wouldn't do well if pressed for details. Well, if you will excuse us, we should be off, Corinda said quickly. Her grace needs to change for lunch. I want to be on time, Alicia added. The princess looked like she was about to say something else, but the king spoke first. Very good, then. We shall see you two in the reception hall. Once the trio headed down the hallway, Corinda and Alicia practically ran up the stairs. You didn't tell on me, said Alicia as they reached their rooms. Why not? Corinda examined her, seeing not the overconfident adolescent, but the small child that she had met years ago. The discomfort of her lie easing with Alicia's grateful surprise, Corinda just gave her a broad smile. Sometimes keeping the peace is more important than full disclosure. That's something else you learn with adulthood.